Hello and welcome to Dragons,
Unicorns,
and Other Creative Creatures.
Cheers!
And this is my lovely co-host,
Rona Gofstein, and this is my handsome, dashing co-host,
Kevin McGregor. Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. Kevin.
Dr. Kevin.
Dr. Kevin.
How do you say doctor in Scottish?
Doctor.
Okay, that works. That's true, because we've
well,
had Scottish Doctor Who's, so
I was going to say, how do you say Scottish in doctor? It's who?
Doctor Who.
Who?
Doctor.
Who?
We'll just go with doctor.
Doctor.
Give
Yes.
me the news.
So, I wanted to, I am wearing my wedding outfit.
Yay.
The reason why I'm dressed up the reason I'm dressed up in this is because I have my Kiltmaker.
I love it.
I have my Kiltmaker on today.
You don't get to, how often do you get to say that? And get to wear your wedding outfit again.
I get to wear my wedding outfit again. So, but I'm going to start right off by introducing my Kiltmaker because she has a ton of history and stories and other great things to share.
Excellent.
So for the past 20 years, Judith Sullivan, also known as my Kiltmaker, has been sewing kilts by hand in the tradition of Scotland's finest quilt-making firms. She dresses Highland dancers, pipers, and Scottish enthusiasts across the U.S. using tartans from Scotland, making each kilt to the customer's individual measurements. She teaches classes in kilt making.
Very important for those of you who are going to
Every
watch and become curious about this, because more and more people are.
She lives in Keene, New Hampshire.
Well, we're glad she came to see us.
And there's a story about how I found her. But first of all,
right.
Judith, welcome.
Welcome.
I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for dressing Dr. Kevin for his wedding.
My
It was
pleasure.
gorgeous.
And there is the picture the day before the wedding.
Isn't that gorgeous? Doesn't he look happy? He looked even, the next day he glowed more. He couldn't help it, so.
Yes. Yeah. And I'll make sure you get a copy of that picture if you like it.
All I can say is there's nothing like having something that was made just for you.
Yes.
It really makes a difference in how you feel
Yeah.
and how it looks on you also.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I actually like the coat you're wearing in that picture.
That is another story. That is a silk Howery jacket.
Oh, it's beautiful.
So it's like it's a piece of kimono fabric.
Ooh.
So that is
From the other side of the
from
world.
the other side of the world. Well, I love fabric. So it doesn't really matter what it is.
There you go.
I'm interested in, and those are, in a very interesting way, a lot like kilts because they're made by hand. They're made to measure, and it uses all the fabric you have, which is what you do with a kilt.
Oh, that's
And
true. I've
so
seen
there's
people-
no waste.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's many traditional garments are that way.
I suppose that makes sense. You know, fabric was expensive. You couldn't just store it and keep it. You really had to use it all, and use it well.
That's exactly the principle behind it.
There you go.
And we're going to show just one other picture from the next day, from the actual wedding. This is the day before the wedding when Judith was kind enough to actually make my kilt smaller because
Dr. Kevin had gotten smaller.
I had shrunk.
Yes.
And I just chose this picture. This is from the wedding reception to show you I got the
Yes.
kilt to spin.
Yeah.
Look at that. I mean, it's like a flower. It's gorgeous.
And
Well, you said it was for events. It's for dancing. It's for...
Yeah, but the reason it does that is because of how much fabric is in it.
That's incredible.
And there's a lot of fabric in it. That's an 8-yard kilt.
Yeah. So
That's a lot of fabric.
Yep. When I saw that picture, when it came up, I was like, oh, that's the picture. That's a picture for the show, definitely.
That is great.
And as you can see, there were other people there that were dressed in Renaissance. There were some that were not, but some were. Yep. So beside Judith, we can now move back to the set. You're going to see over to Judith's left-hand side. For the viewers, it's their right-hand side. A very tall piece of tartan. That is a 10-foot ladder. And this is how many yards?
That's an 8-yard kilt length, so it's 24 feet.
It's 24 feet of kilt material. We want you to get
Up one side. It's all the way down the other.
Yep. You can't see it from here.
No, just trust us. Well, yes, they're panning up so you can see. I mean, he's just said a 10-foot ladder and it goes up and down the other side completely.
Yep. That's all of the material that is needed for one
kilt. So that's all going to get folded and pleated into one garment to fit one guy.
Incredible.
And it's a unique type of garment because there's no pattern. It's all done by measurement and proportion.
Wow.
So
Really made to you.
yes,
Yeah.
it's made for each individual person.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
It's a very, the wearer ends up having quite a personal connection to their garment. Okay, I know. Right?
Well-
but mostly we just throw our clothes on. That's how we think of them. We don't think twice. Maybe the color and yes, it fits well or whatever. But this is
But in an age where you go to a shop and you pick something off the rack,
right.
and first of all, you expect it to fit. Secondly, it's made by somebody a long way away.
Yes.
It's also made using a series of machines. This is something that is made for you by hand. And most people have, like I said, have never had something that was bespoke for them.
I love that.
And that's a word that we don't even use anymore.
Nope.
But what it means is something made specifically for you with the pattern custom created for you. That's bespoke.
I like that.
Well, it's very interesting. Years ago, I went to somebody that they called it doing my colors the first time I did it.
Oh, yes.
And about what colors I should be wearing and what matched my skin tone and things like this. And she had you fill out a questionnaire, and then she identified you as a personality style from which she then recommended certain kind of clothes that would be a good representation of your personality. And I always remember she said, because she would usually charge also additionally to go shopping with you to pick out the right clothes for you. So, you'd go and you'd have this assessment and you paid so much for the assessment and then so much for the information. And then if you wanted her to be your shopper to fulfill it, it would be another thing, another cost. And I came out as a romantic, and she goes, you don't meet many male romantics, and they're the ones that have a relationship with their clothes. She goes, literally, she goes, you go through your clothes and you have a personal relationship with them. And until she said that, I didn't get it, I didn't understand it, but that went to a whole new level when I worked with Judith on my kilt.
And it's true of you, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's true. It's like I have a relationship with my clothes, and it's not just the color, it has to be the feel, it's the touch, it's speaking to me.
Even with those Christmas ones, too. I mean, those all are that other facet of the fun and the silly, and it's true.
And I had, now, I want to find out about kilt history, and I want to find out about how your kilt history, how you got involved with it. But I want to start by talking a little bit about this tartan, because this was a hard tartan for me to find, and it was because I found the tartan, Judith and the tartan came very close to each other. Do you remember that story? Probably you do.
I do not, actually.
Okay. So I went through, because Ross clan.
Right.
And I looked at the hunting Ross clan and tartan as a wedding potential, and I was like, oh yeah, no.
That was the green?
It's pretty green.
It's pretty green.
Very green.
And then there was
Well, when you're hunting, you would kind of want something pretty green, wouldn't you? I mean, don't you want to blend?
I'll explain that as we go
Oh,
into the
goody.
history.
Oh, goody.
This is part of it.
And then I looked at there was the hunting, and then there was the everyday.
There's the Ross clan tartan.
Yeah, there's the Ross clan tartan, and then there was the hunting tartan, and then there was a third kind of tartan they talked about. Can't even remember what it was now. And I come on going, no. I'm like, I must have been born under the wrong clan. And then I came across this, and this was created as a...
That's a tartan that was created for Highland dancing, what they often do, because it's a show. And when the dancers are up there, it's supposed to be bright. So what they did was base the tartans on a clan tartan for the striping pattern, and then change the colors, usually swapping one of them out for white, And that's what this one is. This is dressed turquoise Scott. So instead of, and the Scott tartan traditionally would be red background, green here, black and white. So it's very Christmassy.
Yeah.
But they make this in every color, purple, pink, green, blue, red, for dancing. And that's what Ross, that dress Ross, comes in purple,
Perfect.
blue, I think just purple and blue.
So I could get one
But
in
they-
this, like this, only blue.
Yes, you could.
So I go and discover this and said, this is fabulous, this is me, this is perfect. Then I try to find it, and the only place that has it is
DC Dalgleish.
DC Dalgleish. And the only place in the
DC?
world you can get it.
Yes, it is. And well, you have to. Those guys are in Selkirk, Scotland, which is a little tiny town in the borders where they specialize. That's where the textile industry is based. And it's a little tiny town, a little tiny building around the corner, not on the main street at all. And I've been dealing with them for 20 years. I used to
Wow.
call them up and talk to the owner now and then, and but they developed this line of about 75 dress tartans for dancers, and you're right, they're the only ones who make it, and but I've been dealing with them for many years, and so they know exactly who I am, and which
is very
for me
helpful.
that's interesting. I mean, but it's a small world. I mean, the kilt makers across the U.S., there are a few of us, but we're a pretty small select group.
There you go. It's a good thing you found one.
Not too many. Even in the Northeast, there are about 4 that I know of. In the Northeast.
Well, and so I go and I find DC Dalgleish, and I try to go and I discover the tartan, and I try to buy the fabric, and you can't buy the fabric from
Not
them.
from them, no.
No, you can't buy the fabric. They only sell wholesale to kilt makers. But at the same time, I had gone to a shop in Portsmouth that was a Celtic shop, and I looked at there and I said, and I wasn't going to buy anything that they had. And I showed them, I had a picture. I carried a picture on the phone of this material. And they were like, no, 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 no. And they gave me Judith's card. And they said, if anybody can help you, it might be her. Well, I reach out to her, and of course she knows exactly what I'm talking about. And they had just barely, I mean, they had just a little bit more than what you needed.
Yeah,
but
they
were
didn't
almost
have
out of
much
it.
in stock, and I get nervous because of knowing them the way I do. It's a small shop, and if they run out, they may reweave it. They might put it on the back burner, and
Oh
like when
my
we get to it,
gosh.
we'll do it. Yeah, or wait until they get a few orders, but they're not in a hurry. So you have to, when you see it, you have to get it, and that's it, and that's why. So you had that. I had that fabric for almost a year before you.
Yep, we ordered that fabric a year
before
in
you
advance.
came and got
Wow.
measured.
Yeah.
And
Serendipitous they had it. Yeah.
well, it is, but when I look at their list, and luckily now they do have a computer-generated list of what they have in stock, because it used to be they had to fax that to you
Oh my
once a
God.
week, and it was
Type it.
they were firmly stuck in the 1950s.
They were happy
They were pretty
there.
firmly stuck, but they're lovely people. What they produce is the best tartan available, and that's
That's it. I mean,
so. If
you
that's
have
what
to
you
deal
want,
with.
you have
Exactly.
to wait. And some people are horrified at how expensive this stuff is, because if I mean, that's dancer's lightweight fabric, and that's among the less expensive of the fabrics that I deal with.
That makes sense.
When you get to one that's a heavyweight like this one, or something that you have them make special, because what they do that no one else will do is, if you have a rare or unusual tartan that nobody produces, they will weave you 1 kilt length of it, as little, their minimum is 5 meters. When people come, and they want, say it's their clan tartan, that's their group. They're, you know, you are part of the group, and you wear that thing to all the clan functions. You can have a kilt for 30, 40 years. It'll be fine as long as you take care of it.
Yeah.
And as long as you don't change, it's much more likely that the wearer would change size than something would happen.
Yeah, we
to
had
the
that
kilt.
happen with
yes,
us.
we do. But the thing is that, again, if you take care of it, it's an investment that will last a long time. I mean, I've remade kilts for people who inherited one from their dad, and the dad is
that's
passed,
neat.
and the son wanted to wear it. They weren't the same size, which it happens, but you can take this apart. I took it apart flat. I took it right down to fabric, pressed it out, and remade it to the son's measurements. And the fabric, being wool, and with proper care, will last a long, long time. So
That's
it's
great.
really, you know, you can have so many memories attached to it. And I've taken, you know, men's kilts and cut them down into little kilties for 2, 4-year-olds.
Aw.
Because they wanted, you know, if it has moth holes up here, you
Yeah.
can use this for a little tiny thing.
That's
And
so great. It
it is,
becomes
yeah.
An heirloom.
Yeah, it is an heirloom.
yeah.
So, again, it's a very, it's a very personal thing. But, you know, if you're willing to be patient, and also in the past 20 years, I've learned where to look.
I find it, you know, and I do find it, you know, fascinating that, because, you know, whatever we have, the first assumption is everyone's the same way. I mean, like, I have stuff in my wardrobe that's 25, 30 years old because I have a relationship with it, and I won't, and it
Not
goes
gonna
from,
part with it.
It gets all the way to the point where I can only wear it around the house before I'll get rid of it. I mean, I have things that go back to the 80s that I just have a relationship
You
with.
can admit that. It's hard for women to admit this. But I do have things that I've had for that
Yeah.
long a time that I
may have a
cannot
couple
part
of
with.
things. Yeah, I do.
mean, I'm a knitter, so if I made a sweater by hand,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to toss it. And I've gone so far as to have sweaters that were worn out or had a stain or hole made into stuffed animals for my granddaughter.
I love
Because
that.
I still have, like, I made that sweater. I made it, you know, for,
With love.
yeah.
And time.
And it's still there. Parts of it are still good.
Well, you know, and it's so fascinating. And then I want to get to how you got involved with kilts. But one of my most prized quilts, and I have several quilts, and I made one quilt once in my life, and I will never do it again. But I had the experience of doing it. But I have a prized quilt that my grandmother made, and she gave it to me when she was still alive, and she was in her 80s, because she would sit down and tell me, and that was your Aunt Doris's shirt, and this was your aunt, and this was your Uncle Billy's, and every piece of cloth in
Came
that
from-
kilt came from one of her kids or her or my grandfather's clothes that couldn't be, and she'd always cut it in, and you made a quilt out of it.
Yeah.
You can't replace that. You can't, you know.
And well, it took her probably a couple hundred hours work to do it. And,
I can't even imagine. I've
and
seen quilters.
yeah,
It's incredible.
and it's a tremendous amount of work. Since you made one, you know how long it takes. And
one. We stress
yeah.
again. Just
And
the one.
it's I think all of us who do handwork
Yep.
look at it in a different way
Yeah.
than if you've never made anything by hand and you've never put that number of hours into one garment that you produced. It doesn't mean the same to you.
No. My nephew, I made him an oversized baby blanket. It was actually a blanket that was big enough for his whole bed. But I made it for him when he was 1 or 2, so I made it in '84, and he still has it today. And it went on his kid's bed
Aw, that's where it
from
should
Uncle
be.
Kevin. So, you know, I'm making a I'm knitting right now a bedspread for my father-in-law, who you met.
Yes.
And because he says there's only one shade in the world, there's blue and not blue. So it's blue and not blue.
That's
and so
his
I made
only
it all
colors.
these shades of blue, and
Perfect.
I've been working on it for a year because I can't work on it every day and stuff like this. But
And
you know,
blankets
I
are
pick
big.
it up. So,
I
how did you get involved with kilts?
Haha.
How was your history? What is your history of
what's
kilts?
my history? I am a lifelong needle worker. I started doing embroidery, hand sewing, probably around 7. Maybe I learned how to knit when I was 7. And but I was making clothes for dolls that I didn't play with. I was much more interested in the clothes than the dolls. And and I've always done things like cross stitch, needlepoint, crewel embroidery, lace making, anything with a needle. I do it. And I've always sewn many of my own clothes because when you're short and you don't fit, Mrs. Clothes are made for somebody who's 5'4" to 5'5". I'm nowhere near that. And things never fit, even when I was much thinner. They never fit.
Yeah, and there's only
They
so
don't
much you can
fit.
tailor.
And that is tailoring is a skill that I learned from my mom sewed. She made my clothes when it was economical to do it.
Yep.
So I had sewn for many years. When my younger daughter was 10, she came home with a flyer from school and it said, learn to do the Highland fling, because there was a Highland dance instructor who had started giving lessons in Keene. So she said, I want to do that. And she was the kind of kid that if she said she wanted to do it, you kind of listened, because it wasn't every week that something appealed to her like that. So she started to dance. After about 9 months or a year, the instructor said she was ready to compete or dance in performances, that she would need a kilt. And then she told me the price. And
after they picked Judith up
and I
off the
said,
floor.
well, no, I knew it was going to be expensive. And so I said to myself, I can do that. And so I borrowed one and we did a lot of judicious picking and poking to look at the construction on the inside, and bought a piece of tartan from somebody, like Scotland by the Yard or one of those places. And it was a piece of dog leash tartan, green. And I made the 10-year-old a kilt. And people saw it and they said, you made that? And I said, yes, and I did. And about shortly after that, I heard about a lady who teaches kilt making, and she had worked for one of the big houses in Glasgow starting in the 40s when she was 15. And she was working 48 hours a week for 15 shillings.
Wow.
That, yes. So, and what you have to remember is that women's work has never been valued the same way as men's. And this is something that still is the case in many places.
Yeah.
But her name is Elsie. She's still alive. She lives in California. My good fortune is that she emigrated to the United States and decided that there were no kilt makers here. And it's a bit of a dying art because it's all hand. It's all handwork, and you have to pay people for their time. So she started teaching class in kilt making. That was 1997. I went to my first kilt making class. And I just fell in love because it's a combination of sewing, which I love. You can do it in your lap. You're not chained to a machine. Math, which intimidates some, but I enjoy it. And it's like the quilt that you made, the pieces kind of fit together like in a certain way, like a quilt would do. And so I really enjoyed it. and people started asking me to make kilts, and pretty soon I was making 50 a year. Now I make, in my busy season, I make 2 a week.
Oh my goodness.
So I sew every day. I talk to, I deal with all the major mills in Scotland. I've learned, to do the business part of it. But mostly, I enjoy each one. You would think, oh, you do the same thing over and over. Each one is different.
No, yeah.
And like that one, now you're going to ask me
Yep.
the name of that tartan.
I wasn't going
I
to.
can't. It will come to me in a moment. But there is a way to fold the fabric so that you don't lose any of the stripes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key, one of the keys to a nice looking kilt. You don't want any stripes to disappear as the pleats taper toward the top, because they start out big down here. At the sewn down part is called the fell. The bottom of the fell, the pleats are wider, and then they taper in, because in most cases your waist is smaller than around your seat.
No, do.
And the same thing here. You don't want to lose any stripes, so you have to figure out where you're going to fold. And then you have to say to yourself, once you get the tartan, you can say, okay, I can get X number of pleats out of this. How big does each one have to be? And that's where the math comes in. But I have to also sew within probably a 32nd of an inch
That's
of
not
accuracy.
A lot of space.
And so this one, you can see, just move that.
Yeah.
This one, what I've done is plan it, based the aprons just with temporary stitching. I've hemmed it already. This is a completely planned garment.
Okay.
You don't make it and then say, oh, I think it needs to be this long. You have to,
Yeah, that
you have
could
to
be.
know before you start. And then each one, you put a chalk mark where you're going to fold it. And fold and sew so that the stitches here are invisible. But it's very strong. There's probably 15 to 20 stitches to the inch here.
Holy cow.
And then once that's done, doesn't show, this right here, I'm folding and basting the pleats together to hold them in place for pressing,
Right, so that the...
because it makes like a package, because otherwise it's just flopping.
We don't want it flopping.
Yeah, and then
No.
on the inside, what would happen is I'm eventually going to cut away excess fabric up here, put a stabilizer to keep the waist the same size, no matter what, and then more stitching down here that makes it swish and the way
Oh,
you
Lined
are
it in the
happy with.
picture,
Yeah,
right.
because without all that interior structure, and this is the tailoring part,
Right.
it won't.
Won't move.
It's just a thing, and it won't move the way you want
That's
it to.
amazing. The engineering.
Yeah, there's
is
engineering here.
Incredible.
But this, what you're wearing, this is where the history part comes in.
Mm-hmm.
What you're wearing
Yep.
is very much a 19th century development, because kilts go back to the 16th century,
Yep.
and earliest representation of one that you can definitely say that's a kilt is about 1590.
Okay.
And
There's a
it
long
was,
history.
what it used to be was a long rectangle of fabric, as much fabric as in that kilt length we looked at earlier, just with the two pieces put side by side. So it would be 4 yards long and about 55, 60 inches wide. Because looms, the maximum width on a loom at that time was 30 inches.
Yep.
They didn't have looms wider than that. And there were
Oh, so
laws.
you had a limit
There were
to-
laws in England
Oh my
about
gosh.
how wide a loom could be. And the
Loom
weavers,
laws.
yeah, the Weavers Guild was very strong. And so that was what's called a Great Kilt. And anybody who's watched Outlander has seen Jamie and the other Mackenzie's, wearing a great kilt, which is, you actually do put it on the floor, pleat it, lie down on it, wrap it around yourself, and put a belt over it.
That's amazing.
And it's a multi-purpose garment. So it's your daytime clothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's better than walking through damp ground in long pants, which immediately get wet and are
Ugh.
very uncomfortable.
And
That's why a
moldy,
kilt
yeah.
is so practical in the Highlands. They would undo the belt and wrap it around themselves at night as a sleeping bag. If it's cold, you take the top part of it and you bring it up over your shoulders and over your head to wrap around yourself. And it's spelt like plaid, but it's called a plaid.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the Scottish pronunciation for that thing. And what you wear over your shoulder also, sometimes people wear a square of fabric. That's called a plaid. And after about 1760, 1780, the great kilt was divided into two pieces. The part that went around your waist, the pleated part,
Mm-hmm.
and the plaid. So
Over the shoulder.
instead of a great kilt, it became a small kilt and a plaid.
Oh.
And so what you're
It's a
wearing,
two-piece suit.
yeah, and then people started doing the thing where this part was actually sewn in, because before the
'Cause
pleats
now you
were
didn't
just
have
loose.
To, right, you didn't have to pull it apart.
You didn't
the same way
take it
anymore.
apart every time you put it on, and then this type of thing. There were Highland regiments around 1800 that wore a small kilt like this. This tartan actually would be one of them. This is Royal Stuart. But the Black Watch, what people think of as that dark blue-green tartan, is called Black Watch. That was a regiment. That was the 42nd Highland Regiment. And they wore those kilts. That's one of the first ones that was associated with a clan, because the association between a surname and an actual tartan
Pattern.
doesn't really go back as far as people want it to. It's
Like as far as they wanted to.
and because very interestingly, there were two brothers and the Allen brothers who popularized the idea of just that association between a particular tartan pattern and a surname. And then, of course, Queen Victoria loved Scotland and the Highlands.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all the rage in Victorian times. She had many a tartan dress.
I don't picture her in tartan.
Oh, well, when she was young and slim,
Yeah.
she, it was lovely. It was really, really pretty. But anyway, and there have been Highland regiments in Scotland, and to this day, they don't go into battle in kilts anymore, but they did up until World War I. And they were very fearsome guys. I mean, very,
I wouldn't
very
want to
tough.
run into them in the battle.
So it's not a skirt, it's a kilt, and there is a difference, and people, as you talk and people learn more about it, then they kind of get the idea, because more than one, I do a lot of weddings, and of every type of event, and I've had more than one fiance drag her fiance because she wants him to
Intended.
wear a kilt. And the thing is that once they put it on and they turn around and they look in the mirror and they're like, I look good. It's really, they're convinced. The other thing is a lot of people wear them. Like my husband wears one just hanging around the house, doing housework, because you have very good freedom of movement.
Yeah.
A lot of I've
That's what
seen
women know about
people.
skirts.
It's like the modern version of like a contemporary kilt would be a utilikilt. I've seen guys, landscapers, construction workers, they're very, very comfortable. People use them for hiking, all kinds of activities where they want to be comfortable, and the kilt is very good for that.
Do you find it comfortable?
Yeah, I mean, I wore it for the day of my wedding, and this is the next time I've worn it, because it's not something that I,
Think to put on first thing in.
but, and I would never put it on to do housework. It's not a housework kind
Well,
of
it's
kilt.
your wedding kilt, yes.
It's my
exactly.
wedding kilt. I'm sure that I will be wearing it at the future Renaissance fairs. I went to a Renaissance fair just before the wedding, and I wouldn't wear my wedding kilt there
No.
because I hadn't worn it for
But
my
I
wedding yet.
imagine you saw quite a few of them there.
Yeah, I saw quite a
Lots.
few there. And of course, I'm the person that runs around the house, and I have like full-length robes that were made for me that are like kaftani-like robes, or I have shirts that like go down to my knees, and and that's what I wear around the house. So that kind of dress type of freedom
Tunic-y,
feeling,
yeah.
tunic-y, so that appeals to me. I think that my thing is with this particular kilt is I can tell you I'm slightly paranoid of it's my wedding kilt. It's very
Oh, yes,
light. I don't
yes.
want to get it dirty. I want it to be.
You need an everyday kilt.
I
then
have
for-
seen, well, I do, this little turquoise kilt is for an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee you that her mom will not be allowing her to eat anything whilst wearing it. Or at least she'll have an apron on. I've seen, I almost had to kill my kid because she spilt mustard on the front of
Oh
her
my
kilt.
gosh.
And that was a little bit of a sore point, but
No mustard.
I got most
Hold
of
the
it
mustard.
off. Turmeric's very bad. It stains.
Oh
Turmeric,
yeah,
yes, and
turmeric.
I
Yeah,
cook
it
with
is.
turmeric.
I was about to say it was used as a dye,
Yeah, and
so
that's
it's going to stain.
You want to, but you can. The good news is that you can use soap and water to get stuff out. It's not. You don't have to run down to the dry cleaners and beg them to remove the spot. Soap and water will do every bit as much as they can do.
Well, and it's very interesting because
Scotch guarded.
You kind of actually said that if I got a stain or something on the kilt to not go to the dry cleaners because
Yeah.
they usually screw up the pleats. And
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
They don't know what to do because that one has the basting in for the pleats, so they're sort of tied together.
Oh yes, I
And
can see the.
then you can put it into the presser, and everything will stay straight because the essence of that one right there is that each pleat is the same and they all go straight. If they're crooked
You'll
or
notice.
not, it'll look all wrong.
Yeah, you'll see it immediately.
And so when I press them, that's what they look like. And then you have to take out all those little. So there's probably 100 yards of basting in this before I'm finished with it. Like temporary stitching.
100
that-
yards of
yes,
temporary stitching.
Yes.
Oh my
In
gosh.
addition to the other, yeah. So when I take it all out, there's a little, looks like snowfall on the floor. And that's another one where you can see the basting.
Can we see
that
this
one is
one?
not pressed.
Yeah, there. Oh yeah, you can see
And
it's
it's
kind
all
of-
puffy.
Right. Yeah.
And then the presser it also doesn't have a top band on it.
oh yes, not yet.
But that was a piece that I had our friend DC Dalglish make special for the customer. And because that's a Kelly dress. Those are dancers' tartans on that one.
So can we have that picture up, please?
They've
So
got-
those,
Yeah.
those are dancer tartans.
Right, there's the white again. You said you
Right.
pull out the deep
And-
dark color to highlight the movement and.
So, and these are for a variety of young ladies who dance. But the other blue one, the striped one, that was for a young man. He's about, I think he's 21, who's a dancer. Quite a good dancer. And Highland dancing is interesting because that's boys and girls compete equally. They're in the same groups together, so they compete against each other.
Very different.
It's very physically demanding and aerobic. They use Highland dancing, they used to use it in the military for physical training,
Wow.
because you need to be quite fit to do it. And I think people are familiar with stuff like the Highland fling. There's a dancer, if you can see that.
Oh, yeah, let's
picture.
promote
let's
this one
That
for
one,
viewers. There's a dancer.
That, and so she's all dressed up in the outfit, but that's a kilt that I had made for her. How to say it? You need to look just so if you're a dancer. Part of it is that you're wearing something that fits
Right, so
properly.
the presentation is going to be.
And she's going to be, she looks all nice. She's wearing a velvet jacket, a kilt, wool tartan hose to match the kilt, and dance shoes. And then she's going to perform, a dance that's like running a mile. That's how aerobic it is.
Wow.
So in the space of 3 minutes, she might hop 200 times. So
Holy cow.
yeah, it's and that's my daughter danced for about 10 years.
So what I hear you say is that the Highland dances was the original dancer-size.
Yeah, yes,
I like
yes,
to see
very
Jane
much
Fonda
so.
try it. Wow.
Very much so. And the other thing that is interesting about it, it has the same kind of deep history that the rest of Scotland has. Like the Highland fling is a victory dance, and legend has it they used to do it on a targe, which is the shield, the round shield that the Highland warriors would carry, because you stay in one spot when you dance the fling. You don't move. You're
Oh, so you could
right
just stay
on one
your
spot.
shield.
Yes, and that was the idea. But it's a victory dance. There are others that commemorate other events, like after the uprising of 1746, the Battle of Culloden, where the Highlanders were killed off for the most part. It was forbidden to wear tartan or possess tartan. And they didn't get the right to wear tartan or use it or have it returned to them until 1792 or thereabouts.
So
But it's like anything else. You forbid it, that makes it more popular.
More and desirable, of course.
A dance was composed, and it's called chantreuse. It's Gaelic for old trousers. But what it is, it's a dance that's trying to show how the Highlanders discarded the trews that they were wearing instead of kilts, and were happy to put their kilts back on again.
That must have been very-
they also do, it's called the sailor's hornpipe. They wear a little navy sailor suit, but it mimics actions that you would have done on board ship, like hauling ropes and things like that, being a lookout. But what's really, I think, the most interesting part of this, it's something that girls and boys do. They're involved in something really constructive. It's, again, physically demanding. It's mentally challenging. They develop a group of friends that they can have lifelong, because my daughter still gets together with her old dance friends,
That's
years later. But and it's good, clean fun.
So we do need to wrap it up. This goes by so quickly.
It always
It
does.
does.
It does, it does. Again, this is Judith Sullivan. She's Dr. Kevin's Kiltmaker. No.
Kiltmaker to the stars. Our star.
We want to thank you for coming.
Thank you so
She teaches quilting classes
Yes.
as well as
so
she
if this inspired you to want to learn,
makes kilts, and she's located in the Keene area. All of her information has been underneath her or at the end of the show. You see we have a wide variety of kilts on stages. We hope you've enjoyed it. Judith, thank you for coming.
My pleasure to come. I've really enjoyed talking to you both. Very
Good.
interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. You have a history. Your family has a history. Sometimes we don't always like it. Sometimes we'd like to avoid it. But in all of those histories are always those things that we can bring forward to help us have pride in where we've come from and who we are. If you don't know what yours is off the top of your head, then I suspect you spend some time and figure it out. Because going into the world in more pride of who you are and where you came from means you're going to do a lot more things you can be proud of in the future. Namaste.